Hello and welcome to Listen Up, the NSO pre-show talk. I'm Dale Jarvis, and we are joined to start off tonight with Kellie Walsh with Lady Cove Women's Choir. Kellie, welcome. This is an exciting program, being able to feature a choir during the pandemic and having you on the podium. Can you tell people a little bit about the concert and what they can expect?
Okay, so the concert is it's a program of beautiful masterwork pieces for treble voices. Um, we were so lucky to be able to get a chance to dig into some repertoire that's not done too often these days, and then some contemporary music. So we're going to start the show with pieces that have been written by Deantha Edmunds and then arranged and orchestrated by Leslie Hayes. And those are featuring Deantha as a soprano soloist and then two other soloists from Lady Cove.
Mhm.
And they're really meaningful pieces, The River and Legacy Song. And then we're going to move on to Pergolesi's Stabat Mater. And that was actually originally written for male soprano and male alto, but now it's mostly sung by treble groups, either as a soprano alto duet, or in our case, some of the movements are soloists, but a number of the movements are done with the sopranos and altos of Lady Cove. And then we're ending out the program with Vivaldi Gloria, which was actually originally written for treble voices. And most people know it as an SATB, as I work with male identified and female identified singers, but the original work was written for treble singers, so we're really excited to do that too.
Interesting. So this has been a year to remember. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've adapted working with your choirs over the past year?
Well, oh my, it's hard to know even where to really start, but when the pandemic started, and there was an event in with a choir in the United States, and the event happened before there were guidelines, before there were any restrictions. And so singers were singing without masks. They were all together. They had a regular 2 hour rehearsal, and very sadly and unfortunately, a large percentage of the choir they contracted COVID, and a
Mhm.
number of the singers also passed. And so that story started, and that happening started the beginning of a real concern for singing and singing together. And so myself and a number of people in the community worked really hard to follow all of the research that was done over those summer months. There was a major research project that was being done in the United States that was being funded by hundreds of organizations to see, is singing actually more dangerous than cheering or going to the gym or places. And these this research showed that if you were to come together, if everyone was 6 feet apart, if everyone wore a well-fitted mask, and if you only sang for 30 minutes in a well-ventilated place, then you could mitigate the dangers of COVID-19. And so that's what we did. We worked, myself and again an incredible group of people worked with Dr. Fitzgerald and her team, and we came up with guidelines, and we've been following those guidelines now for about 12 months. And so, we've been getting together every single Sunday, and we'll rehearse for a half an hour in one space with everyone masked and everyone apart. And then we'll take a quick break and we'll go down to another space and rehearse for another 30 minutes. When we had this past lockdown, we decided we were going to keep rehearsing online, and I would play recordings of these pieces, and I would do sectionals. And I didn't know if they were singing back, but we were doing real detailed work, articulation and tuning and text, and looking at the pronunciation of the words. And we actually did a lot of digging into the history of these pieces, which in a regular choir rehearsal, you don't often have time to do that. You're trying, a context of what the piece is about, but there's such little time to rehearse, you don't often get a chance. So I did some digging into these composers and found out some really interesting things about these works. And we had, so we had another layer of coming to appreciate and learn more deeply about these pieces. And so we were about 5 weeks where we were, like rehearsing on Zoom. And then Hugh at the Symphony after the lockdown, he was lifted. He said, "Do you think Lady Cove can do this show?" And I said, "Give us 3 weeks, and we'll be ready." And so then we took 3 weeks to prepare, and again, just 60 minutes of singing, and the singers worked so hard. I could not be prouder because to think that they're singing, Pergolesi and Vivaldi and these works by Leslie Hayes and Deantha Edmunds so beautifully and so well, with all of these guidelines under, not easy circumstances, singing and breathing through masks. I don't think I've ever been prouder.
So it's interesting, talking with artists in other disciplines over the last year. It's interesting how adaptable people have been and how they've kind of dug a little deeper, maybe in some ways. So I'm just curious, as you move forward, what have you learned this year that you're going to carry through with your practice? What has come out of this that you think you might continue on with in the future?
I've learned that, I've learned that the social time and the ability to sit with people and connect with people other than just the music making is really, really important. And so I'm going to strive to give more opportunities during rehearsal, during the year, for whether it be as a lead up to performances, or whether it be on a regular basis, that connecting with each other, being in space together, breathing in the same air together, being close to each other, because music is, one thing I have learned is that there's nothing that can be the same, can do the same as when you're in a physical space with somebody making music. So to actually think more about that and to think more about the physicality of being together and singing, I will do more thinking about that and giving more of those opportunities. But there's also the opportunity to get on Zoom. Like, so if we have a snow day, or if we have something, a reason why we can't get together, there's many other things you can do. And there are people you can meet with. So for example, I've met with and had workshops with choral conductors all across the world during this time. That is something, the access to people is something that I will absolutely, build upon and keep working towards. And having singers come together, we, in our rehearsals, sometimes we will use, you can actually live stream the rehearsal so we can connect with other choirs across the world to do projects. So I think there's, now I feel once we get to a space where we're not so desperate to be together that we just wanted to feel what it used to feel like, I think when we get a few months past that, then we'll really start to think, okay, so what were the real positives and what were some of the things we can build upon? And then we'll allow ourselves to have space to really dream about that. But I think now people are just dying to be in the same place, to have an audience, to be able to sing without masks, to be able to stand next to, somebody singing a part that you're singing in harmony with, and to have that feeling of making harmonies together.
So what's next for Lady Cove? Do you have long range plans?
Yeah, we have. Well, for the end of this year, we're really excited. Every year, we usually do a fundraiser called Lady Coke Rocks, and we do rock music, pop music. The Halliday Band, who they're all members of the choir, they have an incredible band, and we do pieces with them. Everybody usually comes in. We have wine and raffles and stuff. So we can't do that, but we're going to do either an outdoor show, or we're going to do a couple of videos. And what we really would like to do is work with some artists in the drag community and do a live Lady Cove rock drag show. So that's one thing that we're really looking forward to doing. And then next year, we're going to be doing, some of the things that we had to postpone. We're working on a contemporary piece, a 10 movement piece by Andrew Stanlan, who is at Memorial University. He wrote a piece for percussion concerto with women's choir accompaniment. And we're bringing down Michael Zaug, who is the conductor pro coro out west, who is just an incredible, incredible musician and conductor, especially of contemporary music. So he's going to come down and workshop us and workshop the choir and the piece. And we have a great Christmas concert planned with Newman Sound, where we want to do kind of traditional music in untraditional spaces. And we're doing a lullaby project where we're commissioning lullabies from all different cultures, and we're going to, to bring together this beautiful lullaby recording and live show.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like you you have a full schedule already. Yeah. Thank you for this, Kellie.
Thanks so much.
Our next guest with us is Deantha Edmunds, who's a soloist and composer. Deantha, lovely to have you with us. Uh, this concert features two of your works, Song of the River and Legacy Song. Can you tell us a little bit more about the works and the stories behind them?
Absolutely, and I'm very happy to be here talking with you, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share these two songs of mine. They're both actually part of a collection of songs that I wrote a couple of years ago called Connections, and Song of the River is, it's really special to me. I wrote it basically in honor of my family, and I like to also credit the strength and dignity of Indigenous people in general for also inspiring that song. There is a spoken part in the middle of that song, which I would like to share with you if that's okay, because it's spoken in Inuktitut. And so I wanted to let people know that the translation of that is: the water divides, some get left behind, don't drift away. Trust the river's natural flow, and onto greatness you will go. So you'll hear that message in Inuktitut in the Song of the River. Legacy is a really important song to me, and it was vital for me to include it in the collection of songs. It was written in honor of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and two-spirited people, in order to uplift and honor their memories of our lost and stolen sisters. So it's a very important song to me and has a lot of meaning. I'm so happy to have the chance to share these songs.
One interesting thing in reading your bio is that you are Canada's only Inuk professionally trained classical singer, and I'm very curious about that. Can you tell us about your journey? How did you end up here, and where did you start?
Absolutely. Well, I grew up in Corner Brook on the beautiful West Coast, and I was always interested in music. My father, who was Inuk from Hopedale, Labrador, and my mother, who's an Irish Newfoundlander, filled our house with music. And I took piano lessons and singing lessons. I sang in many choirs, played ukulele, recorder, clarinet, but singing was always my first love. I always feel like I'm being more myself when I'm singing. So I always knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to become a singer, a classical singer, especially a teacher and a writer. And those are dreams I'm fulfilling these days.
And
I
no, go
always
ahead.
knew that I wanted to study classical singing, and I was so proud to be recognized as the first Inuk classical singer back when I was in my university days. And a lot of people that I encountered at the beginning of my career would often wonder, well, you're an Inuit opera singer? What's Inuit opera? And I'd say, well, there's no Inuit opera. I just happen to be Inuk, and that's the type of music I sing. Fast forward to a couple of decades later, and I learned about the rich music history from Nunatsiavut, where classical music was part of Inuit life for over 200 years, which is something so special and something we are so proud of, and something I like to share as far and wide as I can. So I really carry this this title or this recognition with pride and respect, because it is how I walk through the world. It's humbling, but I do it. I do what I can with humility and gratitude.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Isn't that unique? Thank you.
So what's next for you? What would you like to do over the next year or couple of years?
Well, I would like to record the entire collection of my songs, Connections. They were arranged by the wonderful Leslie Hayes for solo voice and string quartet. And we are so happy and lucky to have her arrange those songs for this particular concert as well. It really went so beautiful. She did such a beautiful job, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also working on a very special project, which is writing the libretto and the vocal melodies for a new opera, which will be the first to be sung in English and Inuktitut.
What is the theme around that? What is the story?
Well, it's yeah, I can tell you a little bit, not too much, but it is about a woman who is finding her roots and her place and what that means to her, and that's all that I'm going to say.
Okay, very mysterious but enticing. We'll have to come back and have another chat about that in the future. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, thank you. Nakumek for everything.
Nakumik, thank you.
Thank you.